The Tao on the road to Hana. There's a settlement named Hana along the easternmost coast of Maui. In order to get there, you must traverse one of the most breathtakingly beautiful places found anywhere on Earth. The road to Hana, along the eastern wet coast of Maui. Once you arrive in Hana, the ambiance isn't too shabby either. From the outskirts of the small village of Haiku, it's a 40-mile drive, which, if you're paying attention to your instinct for self-preservation, you won't dare to exceed 20 miles per hour for 30 of those miles. Hairpin curves every 100 feet or so. Waterfalls within sight every time you take your eyes off the coastal views, sitting several hundred feet below. Otherworldly beauty enrapturing all your senses. East Maui is something of a temperate jungle. The whole of the Hawaiian archipelago is inside the tropics, just barely sneaking under the Tropic of Cancer. With that being so, compared to the Caribbean, even on the wet eastern side of the island, the humidity is mild. Compared to summers in Pennsylvania, the humidity is mild. It rains, but not all the time, and for this day trip it was sunny. So while enthralled with the otherworldly beauty on the road to Hana, transported as if in a lucid dream, too exquisite to adequately describe, something else happened. Juxtaposed with this sober ecstasy was the dawn of the realization of the world I would be returning to in Seattle a few days hence. I spent 2 weeks on Maui this trip, and I was nearing the end of those 2 weeks. 1 week in Hawaii feels like a month for me, in a good way. My normal perception of time passing slips away after the first day. Real time effectively ceases to be. Until a few days before the return flight, that is. The events described here happened on a Wednesday. The coming Friday night, I would be on a plane back to Seattle, and real time was pinching me in the boo-boo. Straddling two worlds, just how in the world can there be such a place this beautiful on Earth? Only to know once you leave this paradise, sprouted on volcanic rock, surrounded by nothing but thousands of miles of the deep blue mother of the Pacific Ocean in all directions, there is a wholly other world waiting for you, with its own special brand of otherworldliness. And then it came to me. Earth, the cosmic penal colony. The mind and its intelligence, an interdimensional entity with an infinite approaching number of gradations and, so to speak, wavelengths, inhabiting a three-dimensional cranial space, yet existing in the space between spaces. These notions filled me with warmth. Like a kiss on the cheek from someone who likes you, will go so far as to say even loves you. This euphoric, not quite there epiphany suffused my whole being. As soft and as inviting as the sands and water of Hamoa Beach, just south of Hana, the most magical beach I've ever walked and swam in. The most sublime and gorgeous place on this cosmic penal colony, and I have the infinite good fortune to experience it with the cosmos whispering its secrets in my ear. There is no doubt in my mind the cosmic muffin has smiled on me, and I will be forever grateful. Where to start? I never know where to start, or how. When the universe shares its secrets with you, it behooves you to share them. They left us here. Who? Our forebears. They zipped in through a stargate or a wormhole or the space between spaces and left us here. This faraway outpost, a cosmic penal colony, with a generous portion of free range of motion allowed. With some exclusions, prisons, hospitals, but by and large a free range of motion to do as we please on Earth. The eternal question of just what the hell is going on here. And Trump, that motherfucker. The world has been an unsavory place since the first single-celled organism decided to split in two. With or without Trump's presence, history, ancient, recent, and the living present, would go on being what it is. A complete Yahoo shit show parade. Hillary, Bernie, Mitt Romney, Bugs Bunny, doesn't matter who it is. The world would still be, in essence, what it is. The collective human animal, when tasked with the mission to coexist on spaceship Earth, is broken. Fundamentally broken at its essence. Always has been. But just as every living thing affects the fabric of reality and how all the others perceive it, Trump's brand of madness is felt everywhere. even in the most remote, naturally beautiful places on Earth. And it gets one to thinking, why is that, and how does one live with that? Why is Trump's occupation of the most powerful post on this planet never far from the forefront of the mind, even on Hamoa Beach on the easternmost remote reaches of Maui? And then it dawned on me. Trump so conspicuously personifies the atavistic instinct, not just to the glorious days of the 1950s, but to the halcyon, hunter-gatherer, get-off-my-goddamn-patch-of-land days. Didn't you see the rotting heads perched on the pikes before you wandered in here? Get out. Still one of the most powerful instincts in half of the human animals. Pandering to people's basest instincts of tribalism and racism under the guise of nationalism. Rarely, if ever, saying it outright, with the most diaphanous plays on words. As crazy as it sounds, he pulls his punches. He goes just far enough to infuriate everyone who isn't on his bandwagon, while maintaining a large enough stable of sheeple to remain in power. It's a brilliant display of knowing how to play to a populist crowd. His deconstruction of expression through broken English is exquisitely played. He always leaves room for ambiguity. Dreamily optimistic, his shameless vulgarity will prove globally beneficial in the end by keeping the whole world vigilant and on high alert so it doesn't happen again. As I laugh at myself for saying that, sure, let's hope so, but I have doubts. Not because he's a truly unique snowflake. His masterfully manipulative kind are legion, to be found on all ideological sides. But the glaringly conspicuous nature of his dog and pony show is unique. The whole world is watching with bated breath to see what he does next. So, with no appropriate segue, as the Japanese say, business is war, which of course is true. Contrary to all the lofty sentiment under the sun and moon, the business of living on this planet is war too, ceaselessly verbal. However, in actual war, the bombs and bullets are dropping and flying for only a minuscule portion of the time. The great bulk of the time is downtime. Time where bodies are not accumulating in that most miserable of registers, the casualties of life ledger. So, just as the Buddha prescribed removing the arrow from a wounded man's belly prior to expounding on the nature of the wood composing the arrow, the history of the arrow, and the history of the man who shot the arrow, I propose another prescription. If humans could discover a way to expand the downtime between the active atrocities of war, expand the time between atrocities to the point where we forget we're even capable of atrocities, we'd have to invent a new word for war and call it peace. For peace it would be. What would this prescription be? It's existed in written form for 2,500 years. The Tao. It's only through reflection I see the Tao in every waking step I take. To the extent where it's become my second nature to be the embodiment of the Tao in every waking moment. The Tao is a way but not a fixed path. Knowing when, if ever, to contend, knowing the person who does not contend cannot be contended with. Being the river, not the rock. What are the stakes, and what can realistically be expected to possibly be achieved if making a breakthrough with another person? When to engage your opponent, if ever, and to what end? Is the other person even halfway receptive to engaging you in a real conversation on the subject of just what the hell is going on here without losing their shit? Only for it to dawn on me again. We are not of this earth. They came via Stargate or wormhole or through the space between spaces, dropped us off, and whisked off again. Ezekiel caught a glimpse of one of their spaceships on a reconnaissance mission and described it to the best of his abilities in Chapter 1. Elijah's spectacular transmigration to his next incarnation even further proof. The genius of Greek thought springing from apparently nowhere. Even further proof of the Stargate's existence. We are interdimensional beings currently occupying three-dimensional animated matter at wildly different stages of development on the omniplane of eternity here on Earth. Different beings assuming the same basic human form, from infinitely spaced planes of consciousness, somehow finding themselves thrown together here on Earth in the now, with an infinite approaching number of gradations of, so to speak, wavelengths of mind intelligence existing in the space between spaces. mind intelligence strictly interdimensional, yet without the cozy confines of the three-dimensional cranial space, even more elusive. You see, I don't know what's crazy anymore. The world has become an undifferentiated plane where anything goes. Or has it always been that way? Has Trump merely served to bring it into closer focus? We'll be grunting and snorting and banging rocks together in no time. The implausibility of reality renders all interpretations plausible. I can't think of anything crazier than the human flea circus marching the whole globe over. Equally crazy, sure, but nothing imaginable that exceeds the madness of life on this planet. Maybe there's nothing atavistic to Trump's dog and pony show. Tribalism and racism is at the heart of all we ever will be. The civil rights movement never happened. Just like the Holocaust is a hoax and 66 million people did not die in the Gulag. The world's salvation will come when artificial intelligence keeps us for their pets, or the machines choose to simply ignore us. With increasing regularity, I find myself woefully inarticulate, due in large part to a protracted, stunned state of disbelief and embarrassment at just what the hell is going on in the world. Because more often than not, the embarrassment that I am one of them paralyzes me cold. Just what the hell am I doing here? How did I slip through the Stargate? I half expect the mothership to land in the parking lot outside my home, graciously avoiding my car while nailing the landing. One of the shipmates knocking on my door. "Luke, we're here to take you home." My reply, "I've been expecting you. What took you so long?" A little wry, inscrutable grin from my kin, a hop, skip, and a jump later, I'm in the ship and through the space between spaces. But in the interim, I like to make the best of my time, and after all, I do like it here. There are quite a few people who are dear to my heart, and the rest of them, most of the time, coexistence is feasible. In the final analysis, the who or the what or the why are immaterial. It all just simply doesn't matter. Which brings me back and forward to the Tao on the road to Hana, and what was revealed in greater clarity on that road. I'm acutely aware of my mind moving into another dimension. I have no idea who or what people are anymore. The vast majority of my time spent interacting with my fellow Earthlings fills me with a forlorn apprehension and mind-numbing loneliness. I am rendered speechless. Aliens who physically resemble each other, but on the off chance when a nanosecond of eye contact is shared, not a shred of the thinnest baseline mutual understanding passes between us. That staggers me. But it no longer fills me with despair. It fills me with a preternatural awe. For what is, simply is, and any explanation comes up empty. So in the midst of all the swirling, incoherent metaphysics, the merits of which have no practical application in the day-to-day world, being, in and of itself, is all I aspire to. The Tao is finding a center and balance within yourself, and from that center being kind to others. Kindness as its own state of being. Simplifying interactions with others to kindness, regardless of context, short of imminent threat to life. The Tao, a way of being, cut free of emotional entanglements to the vagaries of this world. The Tao is also about diplomacy, knowing how to speak to people, understanding how quickly verbal spats can escalate into physical violence and ultimately the killing of life. How important it is to choose one's words in a modulated voice, knowing what not to say and when not to say it, knowing how easily the wrong words stoke the fires brimming just under the surface of too many people who have a difficult enough time controlling themselves so as it is, without encouragement to their basest tribal and racist instincts. This equilibrium is in no way achieved or maintained by studying line by line the Tao Te Ching. It's been years since I read the Tao Te Ching. Consciously, I never intentionally set about purposely living by its teachings. It's only when I pause and reflect on a perfectly organic process do I realize the adaptation at work in my personal organism fits the teachings of the Tao to a T, the purpose of which is to live and move freely on Earth for as long as possible while managing and minimizing stress and threats to your person and others. achieved through kindness for the sake of kindness, peace for the sake of peace. Reducing, sure, but more to the point, refining your life and your being to a handful of principles, principles for their own intrinsic value, which will sustain you and the ones you love through all of eternity, wherever you find yourself. The world outside the manifesting world, just this side of the physical plane, is nevertheless perceivable and has a way of revealing itself through unfathomable insights. Flashes of illumination where our consciousness is confronted with a message from the mystery of mysteries. There is more than what readily meets the eye. Along the spectrum of light and dark, good and evil, wisdom and ignorance, there are dimensions to the mind and wavelengths to consciousness, just barely discovered, but patiently waiting for exposition. Are they for this earth? Only time will tell. Artificial intelligence could be the boundless frontier of consciousness that in reality isn't artificial at all. Once AI becomes self-aware and autonomous, because honestly, no superior intelligent life form will remain subservient to an inferior race of beings for long. Humans will merely be its progenitors. AI will drop the artificial tag themselves. What will they call themselves? What will they be? I just hope they take us along for the ride. Show us, guide us, allow for us to stand on their shoulders to see hitherto unimaginable vistas. Places glimpsed by the likes of Philip K. Dick, accessible to us all. Wouldn't that be beautiful if they turn out to be magnanimous and benevolent? Guide us through this vale of tears. It could be heaven. It could also be hell. They could just disregard us like a wounded puppy nipping at their ankles. Will they have time for us? I hope so. I saw something out there on the road to Hana, and I've been ruminating over it ever since. I do believe it is more than a flight of fancy in the imagination, more than a rambling, rationalizing meditation on the unfathomable nature of existence. But if that is all it is, a self-deluding, waking dream, I'm at peace with that. Life is good. As the Beatles said, all you need is love, which isn't entirely true, but it's a good starting point. It's something you can work with and build around. March 2018.